So it's Andrew and Enzo, and we're back with yet another video. And today, not only are we talking to Barco, but as has recently arrived in our new showrooms, is the
big Freya.
The Barco Freya. So here to talk to us about the Freya and all things about this amazing piece of equipment are the guys from Barco, and we'll talk to them now. Hey guys, so we've got Bart and Andy from Barco again. Thank you and welcome back.
Thanks very much, guys. Good to see you again.
Okay, so today, by post, Barco Freya arrived. The postman doesn't like us. This thing is gobsmacking. We'll have some photos and we'll put some details and information up as we're talking. This thing is big. I know you guys do bigger, but for people who are used to putting a little skinny spider mount on a ceiling, this projector's not going to do that. And we are really looking forward to firing this thing up. It's different to anything that most domestic projector owners would have seen. You know, when you look at, you know, even traditional sort of, you know, the Bragi and the Boulder, or you look at, you know, JVCs and Sonys and Epsons and so on. This thing is something different. Tell us why it's different and tell us what's special about it.
What's not special about it, maybe, to begin with.
Good.
Now, joking aside, like you say, it's a phenomenal piece of equipment. It's a phenomenal machine. And indeed, it comes at a certain size, which is not small at all. But at the same time, if you look at what's inside, what kind of horsepower or firepower it actually packs, it's surprisingly complex. Because if you compare that to one of the previous models that we had in our lineup, which would have been the Prometheus 3, there you still had an external cooler or an external chiller that took up some space and you needed to install it somewhere. Whereas with the Freya, this has now been completely integrated. So it's a huge space saver as well, which can help tremendously from an installation or integration point of view. It just makes it lots easier to integrate it into a project. But apart from that, of course, I mean, specs are not everything, definitely not on paper, but the specs of this thing are quite phenomenal and impressive as well. Again, looking at the bang for the buck that you get with this one. So you get 7,500 ANSI lumens, courtesy of RGB laser performance. You get the full DCI P3 coverage, and we extend beyond that into 98.5% of Rec 2020 as well already. Yep. So for the viewers that are tuning in, sorry, go ahead.
No, go on, carry on.
I was going to say, for the viewers that are tuning in and are hearing these numbers and are thinking, well, like, wow, this is insane, this is crazy. I mean, how is this usable in a home or in a residential area? The thing to keep at the back of our minds is, of course, that we go for the best of the best in terms of cinematic experiences. And we just bring everything that we have from our experience in the professional market, and we bring that into the residential side to offer those insanely super experiences.
So this light output, this 7,500 ANSI lumens, correct me if I'm wrong, is this not a massive bonus for HDR content, or is there some other reason to have that light output in this projector?
It's definitely an added bonus, because if you look at the differences between SDR and HDR content, for SDR content we would recommend levels of 20-foot Lamberts post-calibration, and for HDR we would recommend to take that up to, or to try and target around 40-foot Lamberts, because that's where you'll be getting the added benefits of the specular highlights and things like that. And for reference, most commercial cinemas, if you look at the specifications there, are targeting 14, 16-foot Lamberts, thereabout. So in perspective, we recommend 20 for SDR levels and 40-foot Lamberts for HDR content. So that's a huge difference. And most of the times this will result in people seeing the kind of demo setup that you will have. This is something they'll never have seen before, period. So literally an eye-opener.
When we were taking photos of it this morning, one of the things that I suddenly occurred to me, we had the lens off and we were looking down the middle of where the lens housing, and you could see what looks like the DLP chip at the end, and I suddenly thought, how the heck are you guys getting the light? Am I actually seeing the chip, or is that somewhere else, and I'm seeing a reflection or a mirror image of that? How, if you can tell us, I don't know if you can, how are you getting the light from the lasers onto that chip and out through that incredible lens?
So to simplify it down as much as possible, so being what we call a DCI projector. So the Freya is a DCI projector, which means it's primarily designed for commercial cinema, and DCI is a mechanism for studios to protect their content. The reason I say that is all DCI projectors are 3-chip. So as you look down some of our other projectors, things like the Bragi, the Medea, you will see the DMD effectively. With our 3-chip projectors, you'll actually see a prism ultimately, because what we have is 3 DMDs that are then converging to make a single image. So we have a red, a green, and a blue DMD, which the sum of those creates the image that we see. So it's not the actual DMD that you see. You're seeing a reflection of that, and in reality, you're seeing the prism effectively. But what we do is we separate. Well, depends on the projector. With the Freya, with it being RGB, we don't need to separate the light source like you would with a laser phosphor. So that light is being directed around the projector onto each of the DMD panels, and then converged by a prism to create the one image. In very simple terms.
Okay. What's the big step when you go from something like a Bragi or a Boulder? What is happening? What is the big significant step? Why would you come to someone like us and say, right, I want a Freya? What is that leap that you're making?
So there are a number of reasons. So typically speaking, when we look at a model like the Freya or above, we're looking at higher light output models. Not always the case, because the Freya actually is 7,500 lumens output, whereas we do have other single chips that are brighter. But inherently, it allows us to get greater light onto a larger screen. And of course, if we want to watch a big screen, we need more light output. It gives us almost double the ANSI contrast. So the contrast on the Freya ANSI contrast on the Freya is 950 to 1 versus 400 to 1 on products like the Bragi, the Loki, etc. So better black levels. Higher quality optics, which that in part help to provide sharper image, better quality colors, better white field uniformity, but also help to create that greater contrast, which of course is going to have an impact on our SDR performance, but also our HDR performance. Higher quality electronics and processing capabilities, which again improves the image. But probably the big thing, which not all consumers will necessarily opt for, in fact, many don't, but is the ability to play commercial cinema content. So if, for example, you wanted to watch the latest James Bond movie at the time that it's released in the commercial theatre, with a product like the Freya, potentially you can do that. It has the interface to allow you to do that, but you require additional supporting hardware, such as a product from Bel Air Cinema, who are the content provider and have the servers that then feed the projector the content.
And is that part of the reason that this thing actually comes with 3 of its own hard drives?
Yes, correct. So with commercial cinema content, the content is encrypted, because obviously Hollywood don't want people to copy the content and redistribute it. So what happens, typically speaking, is the content comes with what we call a KDM key, which unlocks it. That's the key to being able to play back the content. The server that you would have, which, as I say, would often be from someone like Bel Air Cinema, actually uploads the content into the projector. We do what we call ingest it, and then it's actually played back from within the media server in the projector. So it's actually physically played back from within the projector from those hard drive arrays.
So it's a bit like the old. I used to be a cinema manager, used to work in cinemas, and I used to cart the films around, and I had the reels in their canisters, and I nearly killed Indiana Jones in a car park once, but that's another story. And I'll tell you when we're offline. So it's the equivalent, the old day equivalent of going off, getting your print, taking it, and running it on your projector, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. It's delivered from within the projector. And the whole purpose is to protect the asset of Hollywood or Bollywood or, wherever. Whoever,
yeah. So ultimately, the reason you go with the Freya DCI, apart from dynamic range, light output, incredible optics, is if you're one of those people where you want to have a real cinema in your home, this gives you that capability. It gives you, everything that you're going to get out of a real cinema, right? There's nothing left on the table. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. Cool. All right. Have you got any questions you want to ask about the film?
No, I mean, today was pretty overwhelming unboxing it, and
it's been a big day.
Yeah. As soon as you take the lid off, you actually are forced to look straight into the top of the Freya, and all you see through the mesh is just a whole heap of chips and fans, and it's a pretty overwhelming experience.
It's a bit like looking under the bonnet of something like a Bugatti Veyron or something.
It's just, and you're staring at it going, this is just next level. It's just absolutely next level, and it's very hard to comprehend.
I do have a question, and I think I'll coach it in terms of perhaps percentages, and you may not be able to answer this, but, we opened the box for the Freya, which you can see here, and then we opened the box that had the lens in it, and I did it the other day, and I won't tell you what I said when I opened it, but I was surprised. I opened it for Enzo today, and he said exactly what I said, and it is an overwhelming experience to see this lens, and then you pick it up and it's solid. In terms of percentage, I'm curious, are you able to tell us, in terms of value as a package, you've got the projector and you've got the lens, what percentage of value does that lens make up? Is it 10%, 5%, 50%? Because there's a lot of that, the optics in that lens. I mean, I've looked at some photographic lenses, which are expensive. This thing is awesome. So is there a sort of a percentage you can put on that in terms of, how much of that makes up the value of the system?
It's not so easy. Typically speaking, I would say between 10 to 15% is fair. And the reason I say it's not so easy is we don't have a single lens that comes with the projector.
Sure.
You do when you buy it, but we have a selection of lenses that you can choose from depending on your throw requirements. And of course, each of those lenses have a different number of elements within them. The diameter of the glass may be larger or smaller to achieve that throw. And as a result, if you were to buy it as an individual unit, let's say one customer uprooted, changed property and had to purchase a lens separately, the new lens that they purchase may be a slightly different MSRP to the original lens just because it's a shorter or longer throw. So between 10 to 15% would be fair to say, but it's kind of a sliding scale.
No, that's okay,
depending on the lens you need.
But you've actually hit on a really good point. It's a projector you can take with you for that very reason. If you move to a larger or smaller location, if we designed another cinema for you in a larger house or whatever, then we change the lens and off we go again.
Yes, correct. Yeah, very
Absolutely,
easy.
Yeah.
Or in situations where your room is only 2 meters long, and then you work out that the Freya's are 1 meter, and you kind of go, yeah, this isn't going to work. So we have to put it on its side, which is going to be very interesting. And that's like, obviously, a big thing that a lot of your projectors can be installed, vertically, horizontally, upside down, however you want to do it. The amount of ways that you can actually install these things is pretty impressive.
Yeah. So we've had, as Enzo said, when we realised the dimensions, we've got this in a corridor, and we weren't going to be able to get from one part of the building to the other. So the Freya's been turned sideways, and we've got a high quality optical mirror that's now going to shoot that image onto the screen, which I know you guys have done before. But again, what we're planning on showcasing in Cinema One, which is going to be our big showroom, is the ability of, I guess, a combination of the projector being able to do that, us being able to do it, and obviously, make it work in unusual circumstances, which is cool. What else can you tell us about the Freya? I noticed in power consumption, it's got an option for 3-phase and single phase. Is there an advantage to running it on 3-phase, or is it equally happy running on single phase? Is that an important factor?
Not particularly, no. So it's equally happy running on single phase or 3-phase. That really comes down to it being installed in different markets globally, but also with it being derived from a commercial platform. Obviously, the ability to be able to hook it up in different projectionist booths. Somebody may have gone from, for example, a Prometheus, which could have ran at 3-phase only. So that was the only feed into that projection booth. And of course, they still need to be able to hook up the replacement product. Whereas a newly designed cinema, they may find it easy not to have a 3-phase feed and just have single phase. So there isn't a performance benefit for that. It's purely providing flexibility more on a commercial level than at a residential level.
All right. We haven't opened everything yet. I seem to think that there's no remote control. Two questions are, how do you guys control this? I'm assuming it's with a HTML or a user interface. And the other part of that question is, it's actually left my mind now, would you believe? Yeah, and I assume there is no remote control with it, I guess.
From a residential perspective, we don't supply the projector with a remote control. In a commercial environment, you can get a little off-board screen that the projectionist could use, but we typically don't supply that, although it is available for residential use. As you rightly say, typically speaking, either you would use a little web GUI. We have a product called Communicator, which allows you to communicate to the projector and change its presets, which then load a color space, a memory zoom, focus, all of those attributes that you would expect. Or alternatively, many of our partners, they will have high-end control systems. The most common is typically Crestron when we're looking at that level, but it's not the only one available, as you guys well know. And then they would control it via IP.
Okay. What is it that you guys particularly love about the Freya?
Bart, do you want to take that one?
Can I? This is going to sound like the easy way out, but literally everything. Literally everything. And I know this sounds like the easy way out, but I mean, again, coming back to what I mentioned at the beginning, if you look at the bang for the buck, if you look at the horsepower that this thing packs, I still don't know how our engineers managed to do this. And I'm being dead serious about this. I don't understand how they do it. I mean, in my previous role within Barco, I was in procurement, so in the global procurement team, and every now and then there were these discussions, sometimes heated discussions with our engineers about them saying, no, it has to be this, and no, we're not ready yet to move to the next stage of the development because we haven't solved this yet, and it's not at the level of quality where we need to be. And I was like, come on, guys, we need to speed it up, and we need it to be cheaper, and this and that. And the other thing, they were like, no. And now being on the different side of let's say the whole sales process and the whole commercial process, I have a better understanding for the level, and I say this with the utmost love for our engineers, with the level of craziness that they bring to the table, because it's just it's craziness, and it's at a super high level, and I still don't understand how they do it. It's a fantastic piece of equipment.
That's pretty well said. So the Bragi and the Boulder run on the Pulse platform. Maybe we should talk about that quickly. The Pulse platform, correct me if I'm wrong, is effectively the software, the operating system, and the interface that runs that, right?
Correct, yeah.
Both hardware and software. So it's a combination of the two, but I think we're perhaps guilty of making it sound like it's purely a software platform.
Yeah, I suppose that's what we know as the interface to a degree. What does Freya use?
So the Freya does use a... Sorry, go on, Bob.
I didn't understand the question, but sounds like you did, so sorry, all good.
Oh, yeah. So the Freya uses a completely different platform. The hardware platform is different. It needs to be for DCI because of the way that we have to handle content and the encryption that we've already spoken about. So that's very different. The software side of things is interesting, actually, because on the Freya, although the mechanism and the way that we do things within the projector is that of DCI projection, actually we're aligning far more with similarities on Pulse in terms of the user interface. So what we've learnt from that platform is trickling over into the DCI projectors, and the Freya is the first residential projector that has the new web interface for controlling the projector. So there are some similarities there, but the functionality is very different. As an example, with DCI projectors, you cannot do things like geometry correction or the warp that we can do in the Pulse platform, because Hollywood wants to preserve the integrity of their content and won't allow people to manipulate or warp that. So there are some big differences in that regard.
Okay, so it's a purist's machine, isn't it?
Very much so. Very much so, yes.
All right. So the other question is, this is a 16:9 chip format, as I understand it. So how does the Freya manage scope formats? to
if I may, I'll actually correct. So all DCI projectors are 1.9 to 1 or 1896 to 1. So they're actually, depending on the resolution of the projector, they're either true 2K or true 4K, i.e. The Freya being 4K is 4096 by 2160. So that makes it a 1.9 aspect ratio.
Right.
The way that DCI projectors manage aspect ratios is by zooming in and out on the lens and then obviously shifting and refocusing the image. So as you transition from, if we talk in cinema terms and DCI content, flat and scope content, the projector will zoom in or zoom out to fill the appropriate area of the screen, depending on the screen format that you're using.
Cool. All right. I think, I don't know, obviously I'll put up in a picture here, this is the side of the projector that has all the interface, and only this morning I found the button that turns it on. So we've got a display screen. There seems to be like what looked like a lot of Ethernet ports. We've obviously got a LAN port, and we've got their own inputs. can you talk about this interface? It takes quite a few signal inputs. I've noticed the thing has a lot of cooling, a lot of vents, a lot of fans. Do we know if it's a really noisy beast, or is it fairly quiet? I haven't looked at the specifications on that at all. Do you guys know that at all?
Fairly quiet, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Go ahead, Andy.
Go on, Bart. You go ahead.
I was going to say fairly quiet, actually, considering the size and the level of performance of this one. So, if I'm not mistaken, 49 or 50 dBA.
Okay.
50.
That's quite good. So
50.
Right.
Yeah, it's one of,
go on.
So I was going to say it's one of those things. It's relative. For a home cinema, it's not a projector that you would have in the room with you. For DCI capable projectors, it's quiet. Other models we have can be up to 68, 70 dB, which is significantly louder.
No.
So for the type of projector, it's quiet, but it's not what I would define as a quiet projector compared to others on the market.
No, that's fair enough. Enzo, you got any questions on the Freya?
No, look, I mean, for me, it's it's still I'm still kind of coming to grips with what we've done. But it's going to be very impressive, and I mean, we've had to build a specific cabinet for it, a specific location for it. We're shooting it on a 4.5 meter widescreen or 4.4 meter widescreen, which in our old demo room we had a 4 meter wide, and we ran a Bragi and a Boulder in there. So this is far brighter. So it's going to be, I'm very looking forward to getting it up. So
yeah, we really want to thank you guys for teaming up with us. I can't wait till we get this room going. We're really just waiting on the loudspeakers now and some amplifiers. But the projection side, the screen is up. The Freya was up. It'll go back as long as we don't drop it. And, we're going to get that mirror in place. And then I believe we're going to get some help in making sure that it's all set up properly. But look, this is an amazing piece of equipment. If anyone is looking at building a real cinema in the home, if you are someone who is absolutely passionate about your cinema, if you love the idea of having a real Hollywood cinema in your home, then come and talk to us about the Barco Freya. Come and have a look. Give us a couple of weeks to get this thing cranking, and make an appointment to come and see this, and you can see the rest of the complex we've got here. But we are very, very grateful. Barco have been incredibly supportive of us, and we've got a lot of work to do with various guys at Barco now and getting this all set up and making sure that it's all fully calibrated. And but guys, you've been very patient with us, and we appreciate, it's been difficult to get everybody together, but on behalf of both of us, I just want to thank you and Barco in general for your massive support, and we're really looking forward to the future. So, thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Very nice.
I was going to say, if it's okay, if I can just make one closing remark,
please do.
Which is when looking at this level of projector compared to perhaps our more prosumer projectors, there is a lot more involved in terms of the design work. There are certain safety aspects that we need to make sure are met, like Andrew alluded to, management of aspect ratios, the fact that it is noisier, different power, requirements potentially. So if any of your viewers are truly interested in this, please do engage with the likes of Andrew and Enzo as early in your projects as possible, because it makes it so much more easy to engineer this type of product into a project from the beginning rather than try and retrospectively do it. And that's one of the beauties of the Freya. Its form factor and various other attributes actually make it a lot easier from a DCI perspective to integrate than other DCI models that we have within our portfolio. So that would be my closing remark. Engage with the guys in your project as early as possible so they can ensure that actually, if you want this level of projector, that you can ultimately install it, rather than hoping you can and then finding you can't because of A, B, or C reason.
Look, thanks very much. That really hits on a point that's important to us. We are now literally, I don't know if you guys know, our cinema design and development process has taken off. We're doing Tanzania and Kenya.
We've got designs from
New York and Seattle, Argentina,
Kenya.
So we are now working globally, and the important thing for us is that design process. We don't generally talk to people about products until we've looked at the room, until we've worked everything out, and we can't work otherwise. We can't just slap gear in there. So you've hit the nail on the head from our perspective, and thanks for mentioning that. And it means that we can get the job right. It's very hard to retrospectively throw something in and get the results that you deserve, you being the customer. So, yeah. All right, guys, have you got any questions for us from Barco before we disappear?
When do you think the room will be finished? Because we're dying to see pictures and whatnot.
Yeah, well, we've been ready for a long time.
Yeah.
It's the transport couriers, manufacturers. As we're well aware, there's a big issue in the industry with parts. So amplifiers, loudspeakers, everything's kind of been taking a lot longer than what we thought. Some of our stuff's been stuck in Hong Kong for a long time as well. So I'm hoping within the next 2 to 4 weeks we should be finished.
Oh, gosh, them big words.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, the in terms of image in room 1, which is our big room, that should happen pretty quickly, and then we'll need Barco's support in making sure it's correct. And the safety considerations. And just to put that into perspective, this is the first room design that we've had to do where there's a big red area where you cannot stand because you don't want, you don't want to get toasted by the laser. So it's the first time where we've actually had to put safety requirements into a room, which is really cool. Playing with lasers that make that requirement is exciting. So the image, we should have this thing up and making pictures very shortly. The hold up in room 1 now is speakers and amplifiers, and then when they get here, we've actually got to house them in their own boxes, and then we've got to install the acoustic material. So that's going to be the next wait. But yeah, we want this thing up and running yesterday. So yeah, we'll certainly send you some photos and we'll keep you posted.
Excellent. Look forward to it.
All right, guys. Look, thank you so much for your time. We know time's precious for you and we know you're busy, so we're very grateful. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Our
Thanks
pleasure.
very much.
Thank you guys for having us.